Hey everyone. Yeah, today, this October 8th, I'm trying to straighten that out a little bit. This October 8th, we ended up getting some information that we've been long waiting for. Today, October 8th, at the 2017 New York Comic Con, we finally got some information about the IDW publication of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Sonic the Hedgehog comic came to an abrupt end under the Archie comic publication late last year. Earlier this year. Pretty much at the beginning of this year, very late last year, it basically started to cease operations. The last issue that came out of it was 291. And the story that was currently going on there was Genesis of a Hero, which was a Sonic origin story, of how Sonic and the Freedom Fighters met, and how Sonic first encountered Dr. Eggman. Unfortunately, it got abruptly interrupted due to the end of the publication, and Archie Comics and Sega kind of going their separate ways. And I guess you could kind of see this because whether you like, Riverdale or you don't, and I particularly like it. I think it's good. You could tell that Archie Comics' focus was becoming primarily on that, and everything else was kind of going to the side. So Sonic was one of those things that was kind of suffering, apparently. So basically ties were broken, and it was more than just the Riverdale stuff too. Basically Archie Comics had a lot of that how do I put this? Archie Comics just had a lot of baggage, lawsuit-wise and everything, that I think both agreed just wasn't healthy for a good partnership or relationship, and just decided to go their own separate ways. But almost immediately after the announcement was made that Archie Comics was no longer going to be the house for the Sonic the Hedgehog, was no longer going to be home for Sonic the Hedgehog comics, almost immediately after that was announced, it was announced that IDW, which a lot of fans were hoping would be the next publication for Sonic the Hedgehog comics, it was announced almost immediately, about a couple of days later, that IDW would take over the reins of the Sonic the Hedgehog comic. And we have been waiting since then to find out some more information. Now, of course, I've come on here, tweeted videos and stuff that I've talked about out to Chris Rael and many others that would watch about how I feel about the situation and what I would like to see. I even did I even did some videos giving some exposition on some of the Freedom Fighter characters. Now, today though, we did get some information. We did find out that Ian Flynn, this is one of the first articles I think that came out. This is one of the first things that I heard today. I was at church. I think church was just getting ready. I think church had just wrapped up or something, and I don't know. I can't remember. I think me and my mom were on our way home from church when this dropped today from TSSZ News, and the news dropped that one of the first announcements was Ian Flynn had been confirmed as the head writer of the IDW Sonic comics. It says, and I quote, "Ian Flynn has been confirmed as the head writer of the Sonic IDW comics. He had a message to share with fans at the town hall. The team at the town hall, Aaron Reber included, are pleased to work with Ian they had a lot to say about him. And this is what Ian said via Twitter. Hashtag Knowing Smile continues. More surprises this week. Stay tuned and thank you for the overwhelming response. Okay, so whether you like Ian or you don't, and I've had my issues with him being brought back as the head writer, I think it's a good choice, because if you want to get that established fan base of the original Archie Comics run on board with IDWs, you need to have some familiar talent behind the scenes. Now, we did find out this information about the comic. The comic will be released, and this was actually a few days before, but the comic that we found out, but it became more official at the press conference today, the press conference, that the IDC, or the IDW Sonic issues 1 to 4, will be releasing every Wednesday in April of 2018. April 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th, issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be releasing on those days, respectively. He says after that, the comic will move to monthly. IDW wants to hit the ground running and give fans something quickly. In other words, it sounds like IDW understands the fans want a Sonic comic as quickly as possible. They want something that's going to help them establish, or help them get re-established with the characters, maybe re-established or established with this new take on Sonic, and they want to do it as quickly as possible, and then starting in May of next year, go into a more monthly run. Now, they also showed artwork, and I think if I can pop it up here somewhere, you'll see it. They showed the artwork by Tyson Heath, who also had been working on the Sonic comic at Archie. And basically it says Tyson Heath had something to share with the town hall today, and that is the artwork that apparently they gave printed copies to everyone that attended. Now, they also had a Q&A info. This is the Q&A from the Sonic New York Comic Con IDW event. The Q&A went like this. People got to ask questions, and they got some answers. They say that crossovers were asked. And the answer to that is, it will be a while, maybe a year. They want to get the current series established first. So what they're saying there is they're not ruling out crossovers maybe with other IDW comics, but they want to get the current comic of Sonic established first in the eyes of the fans. They asked about previous writers coming back, and the answer they gave was there may or may not be some creators you know and love. In other words, they're saying, yeah, you may get some writers you know, and you may get some writers you don't know. I think another question was, Sega does impose certain restrictions on the characters. But the answer, okay, another question, I guess this was the answer, I don't know what it is, but it says that Sega does impose certain restrictions, quote-unquote restrictions, on the characters. But the comics allow for the freedom to do things they can't do in the games. Primary job is to, quote-unquote, tell the best stories possible. So in other words, they are aware of the restrictions that are there, but it sounds like the comic is going to be a little bit more refrained from those restrictions. Now, they asked about the Freedom Fighters returning, and the answer they got was, stay tuned. And that IDW is aware of the demand, though. So in other words, they're not ruling out the Freedom Fighters, and when they say stay tuned, that basically sounds like it's a good sign, in my opinion. It's a good sign, in my opinion, that we are probably going to get the Freedom Fighters, but not in the way we would expect right off the bat. But when they say they know they're in high demand, though, at least they realize, hey, people want to see these characters with Sonic. Let's try to get them in there. The other answer to a Q&A is the comics will start completely fresh with issue 1. So obviously that answers the question of would they continue the numeral issuing from Archie Comics? The answer is no. Basically it's going to be all new and all fresh. So that pretty much answers that. You have to draw your own conclusion for Genesis of Hero or any of the other stories that potentially could have been. Another part of the Q&A was I guess a question to where the answer was another question that was asked. Well, basically another answer put in this Q&A was this: that quote, they are specifically making this world built in a world IDW controls separate from the games. Aaron is at the event. Aaron Weber, that is, who works at IDW. They say that he added more to say, basically it says that Aaron said there might be occasional tie-ins with a game, but stay tuned. Now what they're saying here is they want to make a world to where it's not totally about the games, but if the game tie-in has to occur, you're going to get one. Now they also report that during this panel that IDW made a big deal about the comics being a fresh start with characters, and that they're telling brand new stories. It was their answer to multiple questions. And so in other words, what they're saying here is IDW is pretty much telling them that the comics are going to be like a fresh start for characters like the game characters and maybe the SatAM characters, and they're going to be telling brand new stories. So there won't be any continuation of this story or that story, or maybe finally telling of a story that should have been. Although we may get that, I don't really know. They did say that modern Sonic is the focus. No multiple versions of Sonic running around, including classic Sonic. So in other words, current Sonic is going to be the focus. They did say that Sega restrictions are not that high. They just want to make sure that they do things properly without jumping the shark. In other words, the restrictions are not going to be so in demand, and that they want to make sure that whatever they do, they aren't getting ahead of themselves or ignoring plot lines and stuff like that. It says IDW starts on Sonic the Comic. They said, for now, we really want to establish a new Sonic comic. Our focus is on something new and exciting. Now, they did say that Aaron Weber mentioned the thing with Archie. Aaron says that quote-unquote things happened on why the Archie era story arc suddenly stopped the way it did, or the way they did. But he did say that sometimes these kind of things happen. He said, quote, there are reasons, trust us, I wish we could go into more detail, it's tough for us too. So what he's saying there is he understands that fans probably want to see a conclusion to some of these story arcs that would have been, maybe finally see some fleshed out versions of the story arcs that had been, but they can't do anything because they can't go into much detail, obviously for legal reasons. They did ask if IDW would have its own Sonic Universe comic. I think Aaron Weber, I think the answer was that IDW is not taking anything off the table, but they want to focus on the brand new series right now. They did mention that they may create some original characters. They did ask if fans would like to see a Sonic Forces comic, which they got a positive, resounding pop out of that, and they said it was good to know and that they'll pass that on. They did say that there was a question about backstory on the characters in Sonic Forces. Aaron's answer was wait and see. Now another part of the Q&A was open to audience reaction. How would original IDW characters factor into the stories? Tons of support for annoying sidekicks. Another thing was creative process for the comics. They said that Ian has an incredible imagination. He could write these comics forever, which means apparently Ian's not really going to go anywhere for a while, especially now that he's back as the head writer. And it sounds like Ian already had his pitches ready for IDW almost immediately. Like, I think Ian Flynn knew that whatever publication the comic would go to next, he had to have something ready, and obviously he did. They asked about, they said that they can use anything from the games. Ken Penders was brought up, and the only answer was they don't know who that is, so apparently that's their answer of saying, we're not going to deal with that. They did say there will be new artists, but we have to wait and see. So what it sounds like when you get down to this, folks, when you get down to it, is basically they understand what fans want to see, and they get that. So they're going to do whatever it takes to obviously give us a fresh new comic that we can all know and love. And since they do understand that the SATM characters of the Freedom Fighters are in high demand, obviously they're going to do what they can to bring them in. And of course, there are certain story arcs at Archie Comics that cannot be completed due to legal reasons, perhaps. And also, you know, them not knowing who Ken Penders is, I believe, is their way of saying, hey, look, we don't want to deal with that. And then, of course, we have a press release. He's here. Just detailing about the comic going to IDW and how Ian Flynn's going to be the new one, and that Joe Hughes is the editor. So yeah, it's basically all the details. I'll provide the links down below so you guys can check it out yourself. But overall, it sounds like it's pretty good news. We probably won't know more until we get closer to next year. So yeah, the closer we get to April, the more we'll know about what's to come and what to expect. But yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of good things coming out of this. You know, a lot of familiarity that kind of puts us in that more comfort zone as far as being longtime fans. And we'll just have to wait and see. But it sounds like it's going to be good. And hopefully the Freedom Fighters will be in there. They understand that they are in high demand and fans want to see them. And I think they're going to do their best to work them in there somehow. So that's all I can say. Let's just wait and see what happens. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. And I'm out.